Hello, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Happy Sunday.
Happy
Amy,
Sunday.
we can't hear you.
Now you can, I bet.
There you are. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us today.
Of course.
And I have to say that bookcase looks amazing. Looks like you can fit a lot of, I like space. So it seems like you can put a lot of stuff on there.
I wish I could take credit for this. I'm actually at my mother-in-law's home in Canada, in Toronto right now. So this is her really cute, organized office.
Nice.
Mine does not look like this.
It's all right. It's yours while you're there.
I feel so professional. I usually do this kind of thing like from my bed, literally. And she's got artwork, but I should really just take credit for it. You know?
Just take credit for it. It's okay. You know what? Take a picture of it, and then you can use it as your Zoom background.
Yeah.
Hi, Kristen. Hi, Hazel. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
Good, good, good. So
I just got back from a week vacation. Oh, sorry.
A whole week?
Yes, and I thought I was going to have a lot more downtime to finish the book, but I didn't quite get there. I'm so sorry. But it was like a lot of family time, and I was like, I thought I was going to like relax and read a week, and it didn't have to be that way. So.
Not a problem at all. That's why we posted a little bit of the synopsis in there. So if anybody doesn't have a chance to kind of finish, you can, jump in. Let me turn my volume down because I think I'm a little bit loud for you guys. All right. Excellent, excellent. So, Amy, do you go by Amy? Is that the best way? Excellent.
Yep, Amy.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, we are super casual here. So folks are probably going to jump in and I'll just sort of admit them as they come in, but we don't have a necessarily, set rhythm for this. We kind of like to go with the flow. So what might be helpful is if you want to take a couple minutes just to kind of introduce yourself. I always feel like your own introduction is so much better than what somebody else can provide. So we'd love to hear a little bit about kind of your background and how you kind of got into writing.
Happy to do it. And then we can open it up to questions or whatever you want. I like casual.
Wonderful.
And I'm a little jet lagged because I live in Portland, Oregon, where it's, by the way, it's 100 and something degrees right now. So I left that and then we came to Toronto and I'm, it's cooler, but I'm a little out of it. So this will be free. We'll call it free flowing, but
there we go.
I may be a little disorganized, but I'm so happy to be here, Antoinette and everyone. I'm so grateful you guys picked the book. I love that. And appreciate the tags and the social media. Honestly, authors appreciate that so much. When you share that you've read the book or post a picture, it's great. So I wrote this, girl. This is actually my third book, but a lot of people are kind of discovering me right now. I've only been writing fiction for about 4 years. I was a journalist before that. I grew up in California, which probably doesn't surprise you if you read my books. They're pretty much set in California, by the beach, and that's where I come from. But I now live in Portland, Oregon. I spent a lot of time in both states. So my family, my mom still lives in California, so I go up and down a lot. I was a reporter and an editor for a long time, had a really satisfying journalism career. I went to grad school for journalism, but always loved reading, as you all do. Always probably dreamed of being an author, as many people do. Probably when I was 5 years old, I first thought that would be great, but you don't get to do that. That's like too much fun, right? So I became a journalist instead, and I loved that. I feel like it's very important work, especially now. But when I turned 40, I started writing fiction. So I'm a real late in life author, which is increasingly common, as I get to know authors. I wrote my first novel after 40. My first novel was The Summer List. And I've had the same publisher for all 3 of these. I'm sorry, I don't have my other books. I usually have like the other books to show, but I can send them to you guys or something. I'll send you pictures. So the Summer List came out in 2018. That was not my original title. In fact, I haven't had summer in any of my original titles, but you know, they are summery books. I love summer. I was born in August, so I've kind of embraced the summer thing. And my second novel was called Summer Hours. And then this came out most recently. This is Lady Sunshine. And this is a book, to me, if I had to boil it down, about who gets heard and who gets muted. Which is really something that has always interested me. This book in particular was inspired by a song that I loved way long ago in my 20s. It was a song by Wilco and Billy Bragg called California Stars. And if you've never heard the album, you should play it immediately. It's beautiful. Beautiful music, but what always intrigued me about that album is that Wilco and Billy Bragg wrote the music, but the lyrics are by Woody Guthrie, the folk singer. He wrote these lyrics, he died, and his daughter found this treasure trove of unrecorded music, unrecorded words, poetry, basically. I mean, he was a poet. And she approached some of her favorite recording artists and asked if they would frame it in music. And I just thought that was so interesting. You know, there's an essay about that in the back. You may or may not have read it, but I'll sum it up. You know, basically you're asking someone else you're entrusting them with someone's art, your art or a relative's art. I just thought that was interesting. So I won't give away too much for those of you who haven't finished the book. Kristen. No, I'm not shaming you. Like, please don't worry about it. No, there'll be no quizzes or anything like that. In fact, I forget things about this book sometimes because it was so long ago that I drafted it. So no worries, but I'll just say that there are some secrets hidden in lyrics in this book. That's part of the plot. So that just really interested me. I feel like that's such a rich idea. And again, I see this as a deeply feminist book about who gets heard. Graham in this story is, you know, real talented, but very problematic artist and person. And, you know, why does he get heard and others don't? Who makes that call? And how can that change over time? And who wants to be heard? Who wants to be just a beautiful singer or artist in private? And as a writer, that interests me, especially now, you know, 3 books in, I'm interested in the idea pivoting between the private creation and sharing your work. So that's kind of what this book is about. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but I'm so happy to answer questions about it. There's a discussion guide in the back, but we can just answer whatever is on your minds. And if there's no questions, I can always talk about my books and my work. I don't know, Antoinette, is that good for now? Do you want more?
No, that's amazing.
Like blathering on.
That's amazing.
So thanks again for reading it. But if you guys have any questions at all, I'm open to them, or you can throw some out, Antoinette, if you like, whatever makes you happy.
We always have questions.
Oh,
always.
Okay.
So 2 things struck me as you were talking. Thank you for sharing that you started writing at 40, because I think that a lot of times, you know, when you grow up, you're supposed to figure out what you want to do. Right. And then you go to school or whatever it is for, you know, however you train for that, and then you do it. Right. We don't hear, I think, a lot of narratives about people having second careers or really finding their kind of passion outside of, you know, and they're, you know, when they're 18 or 21 or whatever else. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's helpful. And I think hearing those stories sometimes inspires people to say, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to do this forever, or I can maybe do something else or whatever it might be. So I love that. I love that part of your journey.
Thank you.
The second thing that struck me is I loved this book. It was like summertime, and the fact that it's summer outside was pretty amazing. And all this sort of nostalgia for me personally, it brought up a lot of nostalgia, like thinking about the carefree sort of nature, you know, of summer, and how you got to, I don't know, you kind of run around and it feels a little bit more relaxed than kind of the other parts of the the other parts of the year. So finding out that you've written some other books about summer, do you feel as though as you continue to write that you'll focus on really more books framed in the summertime frame? Do you think you'll do some other things? I'd love to hear kind of what you have next on the horizon.
Yeah, I love that question. And thank you for the kind words about the book. I think the setting and the time period really do play into that feeling of freedom. So this shocked me. I didn't know, but this is considered historical fiction because a large part of it is 1979. Mm-hmm. You guys all look a lot younger than me. But to me, you know, I'm a little younger than Jackie. I mean, sorry, younger than Jackie. Like, wait a second. But I grew up in the 70s, you know, and I wasn't a teenager, but I remember them. So I think that goes to what you mentioned, that sense of freedom and being unscheduled, not just in summer, but in the 70s, how, you know, that was my life growing up. I didn't have a phone and I just went outside. So my books tend to be pretty focused on the outdoors. Mm-hmm. Again, the summer thing just kind of happened by chance. These weren't my original titles. Every single time I come up with a title, my publisher says, "That's beautiful. We're changing it." Every time. So maybe the fourth one will be the charm, but they are summery books and I love summer. I think I resisted that for a while, especially as a female writer. You know, I resist terms like women's fiction or certainly like chick lit or beach read. I don't know what a beach read is. And, you know, I've been doing this for 5 years. Like, to me, you can read, you know, Proust on the beach, read it on the beach and it's a beach read, right? Mm-hmm. But I think I have this kind of smart girl complex about that where like, I fear that people don't take the stories seriously or the craft of it seriously because it's called a beach read. But really that's silly. And whatever you want to read on the beach is great. And, you know, there is a lightness to these books. There's a little depth, but they are summery. And my fourth one is not confined to summer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the title and, you know, how my publisher positions that book. The story is set. It's in some ways very similar to my others. You know, if you look at all 4 of my books, if you include the one I'm finishing up, in theory, now I'm finishing it up. It's written, I have a draft, but I have a lot to finish, a lot to perfect, let's say. So they are all about women confronting their pasts, and they're all set in California, and the beach does play a role in all of them, but they're also pretty different. At least in my mind. My first book was about finding what is lost, friends, especially reconnecting with friends. My second book was about the fear of turning into your parents. My second book is my spin on The Graduate. It's called Summer Hours. And then Lady Sunshine, again, if I had to give it an epigraph, is Who Gets Heard. And then the fourth one is kind of what does freedom mean for me? That's what I'm going into it thinking about. It's loosely based on a real family that grew up in a surf van in California. Very loosely based on this real family, but it's told from the point of view of the daughter who grew up in this van with her very controlling father and her brothers. And that was her father's version of freedom, but for her, not so much. So I love this story. Again, lots to do, but to me, that one maybe doesn't scream summer, even though it's the beach and there's surfers and stuff, but it's a little more sweeping in scope. It's very much like a juicy family story with more siblings. And again, there's a past present element to it. But, you know, summer to me is that time of change. You know, it'll always be a special time to me, maybe because my birthday is August 31st. I don't know. I am a little obsessed with that, the time of freedom before going back to school or work, or I think that's when such big changes can happen. I remember, everyone remembers, you know, you go off for summer vacation, you come back to school and everyone's different. Sometimes, you know, and I find that endlessly fascinating. And for fiction especially, I think there are no end of stories that you could set with that as a framework. So we'll see. I have book 4 figured out, and then I don't know. After that, I'll keep writing. I don't know what my 5th book is yet. I got to finish the 4th. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, no, that's very helpful. And I love what you were talking about, kind of the lighter read and kind of the terminology, because I always wonder about that sometimes. I always wonder how authors or particular authors feel about that, because I do agree with you. This is a lighter read, but it's also substantive, right? It isn't sort of like all the flowy and the sunshine and the flowers, which is wonderful and beautiful. But there was also a lot about, relationships and relationships between women and family and the dark secrets. And so I loved the way you were able to kind of weave sort of the freedom of the summer and the whimsical sort of nature of it, but also you had that substance and that depth about kind of the relationships between the characters. So I really did enjoy that balance.
Yeah. And, I'm a reader and I'm really picky. I dislike so many books. Now this is a little secret. You would never know that from my social media, because I know how hard it is to write a book, to sell a book, to get out there, to make yourself vulnerable. So I would never give anything less than a 5-star review, unless there was something in it that I found personally harmful or problematic. But so that said, I'm really picky. And so now that I'm on my 3.5, 4th book, I get how personal it is. And I also am able to see that I'm not the person to market my books necessarily. I have an idea, but thank goodness I have a wonderful editor and publishing team that I trust, who know how to get it to people who are gonna hopefully love it. Not always. You want to communicate with the cover that there's a little depth, but it's also, I think this cover communicates kind of the dreamy feel really well. But there are people who are so much better at that part than I am, and they've done a good job, because ultimately I just want readers to find it and hopefully connect with it. That's pretty sacred to me. I have this on a bio somewhere, but I am an introvert. I hide it pretty well. I can do this sort of thing, but
very well you hide it.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm good. I'm sneaky that way. But writing and having people pick up my books and hopefully find something that they relate to my stories, that is how I connect with people. So as long as people find it and enjoy the story, then I really don't want to worry so much about labels. And I've been able to shrug that off a little. When you first start out, every little decision like that feels so weighty. But now I can step back and just say, well, I wrote the story, I love it, and some other people love it too. Like, isn't that amazing?
And not get caught up in like which box does it fit in, right? Yeah. Which box should we say? Is this a thriller? Is this suspense? Is it romance? Is it horror? You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah,
it's hard. There's so many things that overlap, and I know more writers now who kind of launched in 2018 the way I did, and some of them have sort of stayed in that box, and some of them have jumped out of their box, and nobody knows really what it all means. But the publishing industry is full of book loving people who are doing their best in this crazy time. So I'm just grateful for every book I sell, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I will open up the floor, because I could talk about this book literally the entire hours, but I will open up the floor to see if there are any questions or comments from any of our other community members. Nicole, good to see you. I didn't get a chance to say hello.
Hi, sorry I was late. I was literally just finished catching up on the story, and I was like, all right, now I've got to go. But I will say I don't have a question as of right now, and just admitting that I just finished the book. But this is the first book in our book club so far for me that I'm very stick to the schedule. I like to be I don't read past, the pages we're supposed to read each week until the questions are posted, and then I respond and all that. But this is the first book that I was like, I'm supposed to stop here, but I can't. I literally can't. And then I just kept reading, and I read the entire next chunk of pages before. I read 2 chunks at one time, and I've never done that. I know I just finished it, but I was in the middle, but I could not put it down. And this is the first time, because I very much like my schedule, but I couldn't stop. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those books where I'm like, I just need to know what's what's gonna happen next. And the ending was very satisfying. I heard. Oh, I love it. I think you didn't get there yet, but very satisfying.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean that means the world to me. That's why we read. Of course, I care about beautiful prose and everything too, but really, we read because we want to know what happens. And I'm glad you hear it. I'm glad you feel that way. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed the ending, having very fresh in my mind right now. But
oh, good. Yeah, we won't give too much away, but that ending never changed. In my other books, my endings did change. Maybe when I'm writing, like even when I'm just starting out drafting, I like to know what my goal is and at least what I want the reader to feel at the end and the basic ending. But with the first two, some pretty big things did change. With Lady Sunshine, almost never, very little. I could visualize where Jackie and this other mystery person, we won't give it away, was standing and what they were doing and kind of exactly how it would end. And that never, I never wavered and nobody questioned it. And so it stayed. But huge parts of the middle changed. And the beginning, actually, now that I think of it. But yeah, that's important to me, you know? It's you want to stick the landing, right? As a writer, hard to do.
That actually made me think of one question I usually like to ask. And that's, you just mentioned that some parts changed or like maybe some things got taken out. Is there one like scene or something that happened in this story either originally or that you had at one point that you really like still or like think about?
Yeah. Oh gosh, so many. One thing that my editor and I worked so hard on and really did a lot of soul searching on was the Lilith Fair stuff. So that's in the present time period. Again, you guys are a lot younger, so I don't know if I'm probably the only one who actually went to this festival and these shows. But so Jackie, in the story, this isn't giving away too much. Jackie goes to Lilith Fair and Bree, who's my favorite character, like pulls her up on stage. And so we really wrestled with that. You know, was it going to take everyone out of the moment? Was it too much? Was it authentic to the characters? And ultimately we left it in, and I love it because it shows, it's just such a dramatic change from Jackie at the beginning of the book. Basically when she's like living underground in her basement apartment in Boston. So this is before she comes to California. This quiet music teacher living literally underground in this like, I don't know, they have a euphemism for it, but it's basically a basement apartment. And then here she is, not only out like in the sun and the wild in California, but then up on stage. And, you know, she can't sing. We've always known that, you know, Willa's the one with the beautiful voice, but it was important to me. And so we kept it. But the process is interesting, and there are so many questions that you have right at the end. You start to question every little choice, right? As a writer, every scene, every word, really. And then you sort of run out of time. So, which is sort of liberating because then you can't fret over it anymore. But that was one that I remember working on a lot, debating a lot.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. I'm so glad you liked it.
Sorry, I think Hazel, you're talking, but we can't hear you.
Oh yeah, are you muted? You're muted. Oh gosh.
Oh. Mute.
There you go.
Now we can hear you.
So Amy, I love your cover. I think it's
Thank you.
It's so sunshiny looking. It makes you know just want to pick the book up and grab it. Did you come up with that cover or did someone else?
I didn't. I wish I had, and thank you. I have an art department at HarperCollins that designs my covers. I give them ideas and, you know, they want to make me happy, but ultimately it is their call. So a lot of people don't know that. And I get that question a lot, you know, but they want the author to like it. I mean, I'm out here holding this book, signing this book, and the goal is for everyone to be happy, right? The first cover that they came up with was very different, and I wish I had a picture of it. So in the first cover, the first iteration that they proposed, it was two girls on a beach with their backs to the camera. You could kind of tell they were wearing 70s bathing suits, but it didn't scream 70s. And it looked a little generic. I think you didn't get I think what this conveys is like dreaminess, maybe intensity, little more serious. So they came up with this. This isn't my original title either. I'm giving you all my secrets. My original title was Good Day Sunshine, like the Beatles song.
I've been singing that, yeah, nonstop. Every time I pick up the book, I'm singing that song.
It's funny. It's like my least favorite Beatles song, actually. It's a little chill, but yeah, it gets in your head. But I think this works with the plot, because Graham, the uncle, he did always call her that, because she has Good Day Sunshine is what it says on her diary that she kind of hides behind at the beginning. So yeah, my cover changed, Hazel. Oh, there, you're still at. And the title. But these two women at Harper who I've had for all 3 books, they're amazing. The art department, they just do beautiful work, and I love this. I think they nailed it.
Love it. I do as well.
Thanks.
I have a question about the cover as well. So when I first started reading the book, this was Jackie for me.
Right.
And then as we got deeper into the story, it was Willa.
Right.
And it changed. And then I was like reading, I don't know, I was about halfway on the plane today. And I'm, 2/3 of the way done now. But then it changed to Willa. And I didn't know if you thought that this was a specific character or if it was just a generic 70s.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because Lady Sunshine is Jackie, right? It's sort of a sarcastic nickname that her uncle gives her, because she's very much not sunshiny at the beginning. She's grouchy. But to me, this is Willa. But also maybe it's the side of Jackie that Willa opens up for Jackie. When Jackie first gets there in the past, she's pretty conventional. She's pretty closed off. She's had the opposite upbringing. And then she gets to this place where there are no rules. It seems like freedom, at least at the beginning. And so to me, this is sort of maybe that what Jackie strives for. Jackie and Willa, they're such opposites, but they give each other something. So yeah, or maybe it's just an idea, to get real spacey and figurative. Maybe it's not a particular character and it's just this ideal of being a teenager and free in the 70s, living in nature, with a flower crown. But I also love this gold. They did this like gold stuff. I don't even know the name for it, but it's sort of dappled. And to me, it's like really dreamy. And that's, I was lucky enough to get this blurb from Ellen Hildebrand. And I loved it when anyone would blurb it and say dreamy, because I do feel like that's kind of what I strive for. I feel like a book should be a dream, if it's, but like a hypnotic, maybe a daydream. So they got that right.
Yeah. I love that question, Kristen. I hadn't thought about that, whether or not it was
a good one.
Willa or Jackie. And as soon as you started saying it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe it is Willa.
Right. Yeah. I put it down, I picked it back up, and then I was like, wait, this is a different character now, and so it was.
And she's blonde, I think. I mean, you can't really tell, but yeah, thanks for that question. It makes me think, makes me remember the stuff that I'm starting. I don't want to forget this stuff, but I do start to as I get really into the new book. It keeps me fresh. Keeps me on my toes.
I'm sure.
So I maybe have time for a couple more questions, Antoinette.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that okay? And then
yeah, absolutely. I'd love you to talk a little bit about one of my favorite things about it was the depth of the relationship between Willa and Jackie, right? That's just the kind of the center of the book.
Right.
And what I enjoyed about it is, we all know who've lived, relationships aren't linear, right? We're not always best friends. We don't always think each other is the best. And so I really liked how they started off rough, where there was a kind of a misunderstanding. And so she felt like Willa was a little standoffish, to the kind of middle where it was wonderful and they opened each other up to different experiences. And then in the end, where at least from my perspective, I feel like Jackie felt like she was kind of betrayed, right? Like Willa just left me. She didn't say goodbye. I don't know what's happening. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you went about kind of developing that relationship, right? How did you kind of, because I felt as though all the sort of scenes between the two individuals added to the story, but it also told us something a little bit about each character and also about their relationships and kind of how they interact. So can you talk a little about how you felt like, or how you came to sort of write those characters and that relationship in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. So Jackie, to me, there's a bit of wish fulfillment in here. There's a lot of the teenage me in Jackie, who would have loved this summer, who would have loved getting away from her somewhat stiff parents and going to a place where there were no rules. And then this cousin who's almost this ethereal figure at the beginning. She's just sort of a flash of hair, or, a hem of a flowing skirt flying away. And so it's interesting. I think hopefully we see from the very beginning that even though Jackie's pretends to be really angry that Willa has blown her off, or, isn't interested that she's there, that she really is fascinated by her and wants to get to know her cousin, along with everyone else in this very unusual place. But Jackie has some growing up to do. And she comes in and she's so clueless at the beginning. She doesn't get that they don't understand her TV references,
Yeah.
And this was a big deal. Again, I am old, but in the day, you would come to school Monday and everyone would be doing whatever they did on Saturday Night Live on Saturday, or if it was Friday Night Live for a while. But so Jackie's like, what? This is my talent. They're not getting my Mr. Bill imitations and my little things. She doesn't get that Willa has had a very different upbringing. But I think they're both just aching for the kind of friendship that they have that summer. Willa, even though her life seems pretty ideal, it's not, and she's missing company that's her own age. She's basically around adults. And then Jackie really is craving what Willa gives her in terms of just full acceptance, and not looking at her as, the slutty girl or whatever she feels like she's coming into the situation as, because of her father and her classmates. So to me, it was just like, wouldn't it be great if there was this friendship? And I think that's not a bad place to start a book. Then you start throwing out the worst case scenarios and testing that friendship, because that's reality. But at the very beginning, at least for that summer, it's pretty golden. It's really giving them each something that they need, and something that, despite the complications and that they cause in a way because of the intensity of their friendship, because of what they do, the choices that they make. Again, it's all trying to hold on to what they found together. But despite all that, I think they still give each other something lasting and something that they needed. So to me, it was, I want my characters to experience things that I would want to experience. That makes sense?
Yeah. No.
It's like a cop-out, but it's the truth. I just thought it sounded beautiful and fun. And then I needed to make it more complicated as the characters became real and kind of started to make their own decisions.
Yeah. That reminds me of sort of thinking about the relationship between Jackie and her boyfriend. I think he's Paul, if I remember his name correctly.
Paul.
I know. We were talking about that in the chat. Like, we were like, do we think that like Paul was just like, I think we described the relationship as like comfortable or like convenient or whatever. And it was like, poor Paul.
Yeah, poor Paul. Like, honestly, I forget Paul's name sometimes, which tells you a lot. He's just doomed, right? Such a nice guy. Like, I'm hoping he went off and found a nice person to be with, but they were not a good match. He was comfort and safety to her. He was sort of like the opposite of what she used to be like. Jackie was a real fiery person when she was younger. And when, Willa kind of broke her heart, and the end of that summer broke her heart, and she's closed herself off to that person. So when she goes back, not only is she looking for Willa, but more importantly, almost, she's looking for the old Jackie, the Jackie that takes risks and, opens her heart up and doesn't always do the safe thing. She's living a very safe life at the beginning, in the present. So, yeah.
So tell us about the sandcastle, because I'll tell you, reading this, I was like, I need to find somebody's estate in California and frolic there for a couple days. I love the idea that it was like this whole expansive area, right? It was the house, it was all the cabins, it was the woods in the back, it was the beach. How did you come up with kind of that whole, it almost was like a mini world of their own?
Right. It was really closed off from the modern world. I think that's a book club question that I wrote in the back, because I pictured it, you know, Graham he's sort of pretentious, right? But he loves this old English way of speaking, and he has murals or embroidery of castles up in the recording studio and things like that. But it is very much like walled off, like a medieval castle might be. So it's sort of a hybrid of a real place called the Record Plant, which is where Fleetwood Mac recorded their albums. That was very urban. So I kind of thought about taking that and setting it in someplace wild by the coast. You know, Humboldt County, if any of you have ever been there, is a real place. Really gorgeous. I've spent time there, and a little north of San Francisco, pretty far north of San Francisco. So Humboldt County is the kind of place where you can walk on the beach even now and still be the only person. You know, it's colder, but you know, you'll see they when they do surf, they're wearing wetsuits usually, but it's really rugged and still pretty unspoiled. So I just thought about putting the recording studio in the basement and having almost like a summer camp for adults, you know, and this place that would just be a gathering spot, and everyone was welcome. You know, they were a bit living under Graham's rule, although he doesn't see that, right? But so there's that level to it. But it's unfortunately not a real place where you can go and hang out and live in one of the cabins for a summer. That would be nice, right? But in terms of the geography and the towns, it's real. So you can go there. There is a beautiful beach with sea glass and gorgeous, gorgeous scenery that's kind of still pretty untouched, which is a miracle. Hopefully that stays.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I had another question about, so I liked that there were so many different characters, right? I mean, we had, you had a lot of the folks that came for each summer, right? And we had Angela, Graham's wife. And we had, was it Liam, which is Willa's boyfriend. And then we had Jackie's boyfriend, and we had Bree, and we had all these different characters. We had the children. And I don't know, I just really like the wide array of characters, even the ones that kind of had smaller parts. They all feel like they felt real, right? They didn't feel like they were one-dimensional. They really felt like they added to the story and made it more interesting. So I'm curious, as your process of figuring out characters, right? Do you start and say, I want these types of folks in the book and write into it? Does it just kind of come with you as you're telling a story, or how do you figure out who's in, who's out, and how many characters you ultimately need, right?
It's so hard to say goodbye to characters once they are there. That's tough. I did feel that it's just the kind of place that needed a big group. I didn't want it to be confusing, but I start to get to know my characters at the beginning. They just feel like puppets that I'm moving around. But if I work hard enough and I spend enough time obsessing about them and having imaginary conversations with them and figuring out exactly what they look like. I'm a very visual writer, so I want to know, like, what does Bree look like? What's her history? Even if only 1/100th of that gets into the plot, like, I need to know. And then there's this point, and this is the beauty and the magic of writing fiction. You know, if you stick with it, they start to become real. It's a little scary, actually, like, or maybe that's just my process, but they start to make choices, and I'm like, oh, wait, you're doing this, you're going to Lilith Fair on a plane. Okay, I guess I'm along for the ride, and I got to wrestle with you. But I didn't really get rid of any characters. You'll move people into the background or into the foreground, but for me, it's really hard to let go of a character once I get to know them. But yeah, it's a big, diverse group, but what they have in common is this place and how magical it is. And hopefully that, their time there changes them, So.
And Bree being your favorite character, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Why she's your favorite?
Yeah, she's my favorite because she kind of just sees who Jackie is, and they're so different in so many ways, but they connect. And also she's the one person who I think handles her fame well. So maybe there's a respect there. Like she sees what the business is, it's something that destroyed Graham. It's something that Willa ran from. But Bree's someone who can handle it with grace and kind of, I guess I wish I had that as an author, because I'm still struggling with that part of making art in private and then sharing it. And she's someone who can turn back and forth. There's a line in the book about how strange it is to go from dreaming to strutting and back again. And I think Jackie's thinking it about Graham and how he's this quiet person who composes by the waterfalls, then he has to go on stage, or he used to when he was big. And how do you do that? But I'm someone who goes to a lot of shows and I worship musicians, and I always think about how hard that is. And so Bree's somehow been able to do that, to hold on to herself, but to handle that promoting stuff with grace and sharing her work with grace. So, and she's funny, and she kind of sees who people, she doesn't let people get away with anything. And they're just such a fun group. And I think there's a line where Jackie, she knows she's about to leave, or she thinks she's about to leave, and she's looking at them sitting around the campfire, and she's just imagining her gone on a plane, and them sitting there without her, and what a loss that will be and how much she'll miss it. So obviously I want to be sitting at that campfire too.
we all probably want to sit at that campfire.
Yeah, right? Who wouldn't? So hopefully that comes through.
So I have a question, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Question that I have is, what made you bring Willa's daughter back to stay with Jackie? What?
Yeah, I just felt like it rounded things out, and we had to know who was kind of leaving the clues, right? And to me, the fact that there would be that moment where Jackie realized how much she had started to believe that it was Willa, and then a moment where she thought, no, this is all in my head. I thought it was really beautiful to see her daughter, who would be the same age roughly as she was way back in the day. And so Jackie would be thinking, this is all in my head. This was a dream. This was just me living out some fantasy. And then to realize it could be real. And that character, not to give away too much, but the character of Avery, if you haven't finished the book, you were giving away a bit here. So the character of Avery is someone that I am bringing back in another book. So I'm excited that she's kind of going to be in my fourth book. So she's really, really a real person to me. And I just tried to think of what Willa's life would be like in those missing years. What would it really be like? And to me, this is what her life would have been like. And I wanted her to be happy. Yeah. Because I think she would be. I think she's really secretly strong, despite all the heartbreak. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I love that. I really loved how believable it was, right? Because if Willa were to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to come to the sandcastle and we're going to live happily ever after, it would have been like, that doesn't make sense, right? But the fact that she said, I can't go back there, but my daughter, kind of the next generation who's doesn't really want to be the way I'm living, right? Would be a great fit for that. So I really like the way it kind of came together in a way that we still got what we wanted, because quite honestly, there was a point where I was like, please let her find Willa.
Right. I know. Well, good. I hope that's the case. And I felt like, again, I can't give away too much about the new book that's going to come out in a little while, but it's really about Avery. So that tells you a lot. It's about her life. So it's a bit of not a prequel or a sequel, but sort of those missing years, but it's Avery's story. So and it means a lot to me, and I'm obsessed with it right now. So sometimes I forget what's in what book. Anyway, I don't think I've told many people that. My editor knows, but you're the first to know. So I just have to finish it anyway. Well, thanks, you guys. I think I have to run, but I always do a giveaway. So maybe Antoinette, you could do it. There's 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 of us. So if you can just randomly pick someone or send me everyone's name and I'll do a random draw. I'll give one of you one of my other books and I'll mail it to you signed if you'd like. So yeah, of course. And just thank you so much for everything and keep reading. And I hope you enjoy summer. We have a lot of summer left, right? Still July. Till midnight.
We still have time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amy, can we bother you for a photo? We usually cycle.
No, let's do it. I'll hold up the book.
Yes.
Poof up my hair.
Let me see if I can remember how to do this. All right. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.